They never expect me to speak in the places they expect me not to. They expect cathedrals and thunderheads, incense and the slow folding of hands. They expect thunder. They expect the slow, eloquent sentences of sermons, or else the sudden, cinematic flash of revelation caught on a dozen phones and spread like fever through their feeds. But I am quieter than their expectations, and I am smaller. I fit into a pocket, into a bruise of light caught between a closed door and the crack where the night breathes through. I live in the little creases where their attention slips, in the half-read notes, in the breadcrumb trail of thoughts left open in tabs. So I choose the smallest place I can find when I want someone to listen, a moment alone, a screen lit in the dark, a sentence that snaps like a twig. Finally, you open this special message. It's only for you. Don't tell anyone. Something very bad is about to happen in 10 minutes, open it immediately. Do you feel that sentence like a pulse? Does it make the back of your neck prickle, or is the prickle a trick of the light? I have been called millennia of names, and some of them were thunder and some were mercy, but tonight I am called urgency, and I use it like a hand on your shoulder, not to force you, but to steady you. 10 minutes is an instrument. 10 minutes is a metronome for attention. The world spends its hours pouring tea and paying bills and scrolling through advertisements for things that will not forgive them. 10 minutes is the length of a song, the length of a shower, the length of 2 phone calls and a deep breath. I chose it because it cuts the day into a sharp, honest slice. It is enough for a small thing, and it is not enough for everything. And that is the lesson folded inside the alarm. You cannot do everything, but you can do something. When I say, something very bad, I am not always referring to smoke or collapse or the kind of cinematic catastrophe people imagine when they read bad in capital letters. Sometimes, very bad is quieter. It is the slipping of a loved one's hand when you both thought it would never slide away. It is the word you never say until your tongue is dry and the moment has passed and the quiet grows teeth. It is the slow, careful loss of momentum and the creak of trust like an old hinge. Other times I do mean the lights going out and the earth rearranging itself underfoot. The human imagination loves to lean toward extremes, either annihilation by meteor, which is tidy in its terror, or else the slow erasure by boring consequences that happen one apology at a time. Both terrors are real. Both are human. Both make your heart quicken. You read the message and you laugh a little, because you do not believe in miracles and you do not believe in warnings. You have been trained by headlines and hoaxes, by chain emails and forwarded prayers, to mistrust anything that tells you that the clock is ticking. You have been taught to call numbers and scroll for verification. Even now you think, prank, spam, viral marketing. But humor is a thin, elegant armor. Under it you are suddenly very human. You check the windows. You check the door. You glance at the child asleep in the next room or the dog curled like a comma at the foot of the bed. You look at the time and your breath catches. 10 minutes is a drumbeat now, and the ordinary room is suddenly a crucible. What would you do if you really believed me? The first instinct is always to move, to run, to lock, to hide, to download, to pile those nearest against your chest like a barricade. But movement without thought is a kind of panic. It rearranges nothing and it fractures what might be steady. So I will ask for a smaller courage. Pause. Sit down. Breathe. The 10 minutes I give you are more honest if used than if frittered away in noise. Breath is an underrated action because people think of it as happening to them, like a law or a machine. But breath is an instrument you can play. Slow the inhalation, and the world slows with you. Exhale, and the fever breaks its own heat for a second. 10 minutes is a promise that you will have time to orient yourself. Promise me only this: use them on purpose. Let us imagine the list you would make. Human lists are earnest things. They have the smell of paper and the geometry of urgency. They are full of verbs. Find passport. Call mom. Turn off the stove. Back up files. People imagine grand gestures. Call an old friend. Say the thing that's been lodged in your throat like a fishbone. The list is, predictably, full of unfinished sentences. That is where the human story concentrates, in the unfinished. Use 10 minutes to finish one. If you have ever meant to tell someone you are proud of them, tell them. If you have ever wanted to apologize, don't let the apology be partial. Build it with the exactness of someone assembling a small boat. It will not float you away from catastrophe, but it will carry you through its aftermath. There is a temptation in messages like this to ask for proof. Show me, you might say, and I'll believe. Proof is an expensive commodity. It often arrives late, garlanded with sleight of hand and hindsight. I could lay out a sequence of signs, a shadow on the moon, a telephone that rings and when answered plays the sound of bees, a newspaper headline that will make you choke on your coffee. I could be dramatic. But instead I will give you something rarer, an explanation. The universe is not a theatrical director who calls action. It is a web of small causes, of dominoes set so meticulously that the fall is sometimes imperceptible until the last tile clicks. 10 minutes is the length of time it takes for one small domino to finish its portion of the chain. You are not the center of that chain in the cosmic sense, but you are in the center of your chain, and that is all that matters. You will think about odds. You like to think in terms of probabilities because it lets you be humane without being vulnerable. You prefer a world where fear is a statistic, not an occurrence. But probabilities are not sympathies. They do not hold your hand. A 1 in a million event can still demolish a life. A tiny probability is still an event when it chooses you. That is why warnings that come from the thin air of "only if" are still humane. They respect singularities. The universe is capable of small injustices and large accidents alike. You are entitled to respond as if one might happen, because preparedness is a sort of prayer that does not require liturgy. If you decide to tell someone, which you may or may not, consider how you tell them. Fear spreads like a contagion when communicated without context. If you call your neighbor and whisper, "Something bad is going to happen," they will imagine their own particulars, a fire, a break-in, a flood, and their brain will begin to catalog all the ways they can be unsafe. The truth is often less cinematic and more precise. Be specific about what you mean, or else shelter the other person in your calm. There is no moral in creating fear for its own sake. Use your voice as a place of refuge. Say, "I might have been touched by something urgent. I want to check on you and stay with you for a little while." This is a human way to translate a divine tremor into human steadiness. Perhaps you will be tempted to use the 10 minutes to stack material things into a fortress: plywood, flashlights, canned goods. Those are sensible muscles, but they are not the only muscle. Memory is stronger than canned tomatoes when the house goes quiet. If something very bad comes and everything physical rearranges, memories are the furniture that cannot be stolen. I invite you to spend a little of your time making a memory, a sentence to a friend, a picture to a parent, the smallest piece of art you can manage, a note, a doodle, a voice message that says something simple: "I loved how you made me laugh that time with the terrible casserole." These are not frivolous. They are the talismans people wish they had carried when the big weather came. You will have practical thoughts, of course. What about the children? What about the pets? What about the apartment on the 3rd floor? Practicalities are the scaffolding by which courage affirms itself. Make them, and then select the one you can accomplish with certainty in less than 10 minutes. If it's turning off the gas, do it. If it's grabbing medication, do it. If it's moving a candle away from a curtain, do it. Do not let the tyranny of a long to-do list paralyze you. Choose the single action that will have the most immediate effect and perform it with the dedication of a craftsman. And if nothing physical seems to apply, if you live in a place where danger is not apparent, where there is no storm whistle and no smell of smoke, then use the 10 minutes to practice a different kind of action. Practice gentleness. Sit down and write a short note to yourself, in your own hand if possible. Tell yourself what you need to hear, not what the world tells you. You are allowed to be scared. You are allowed to be uncertain. You are allowed to take one step at a time. The world is generous at offering commandments. It is poverty-stricken when it comes to permissions. Give yourself permission. It is a small sacrament. There will be people who respond to my message with anger. "Who sent this?" they will demand. "Is this some malicious joke?" Anger is good armor when it keeps you from being hurt, but it also blinds you to nuance. If you are angry, ask what you are angry at. Is it the message, or the vulnerability it exposed? The impulse to punish a messenger is human and old. It is also often a way to avoid feeling naked. If your goal is to remain whole, allow yourself to feel the anger, and then put it down like a tool you have used. Pick up another tool, curiosity. Ask questions. Find the boundary between reasonable skepticism and the cruelty of denial. You may want an ending to this note, a clear command, a single bright fact. Humans like endings because they are tidy. In the stories they read and the films they watch, endings are moral and satisfying. Life is messy. 10 minutes will not produce a definitive ending to anything important. But it can produce a hinge, a small action that swings a decision into place. Use the time to make one such hinge. Say the difficult thing. Turn off the device that yells for your attention. Close the door. Walk to the window and look outward with the steady patience of someone who has chosen to see. Hinge points are the currency of survival. They pay in small increments and accumulate into something like a life. If the very bad thing arrives while your 10 minutes are still warm in your hands, do not be surprised at the way reality tends to be messy and contrary. Catastrophes do not always come with trumpets. Sometimes they come with a long, tedious knock at the back door. When they come, remember that you have already practiced a kind of response. You breathed. You chose one action. You made one human connection. These will carry more weight than you imagine. In the face of a gale, a single warm coat and a hand to hold are more valuable than 100 plans never executed. If the very bad thing does not come, if all you find is the ordinary hum of the world and the neighbor's television leaking sitcom laughter through the thin wall, then you will, perhaps, feel foolish. That is a common human reaction, to mistake prudence for paranoia. But prudence is not shameful. It is an expression of care. You have practiced a ritual of attention, and rituals are training grounds for larger courage. You have reminded yourself that life can be brief and that moments are available to be spent. That is not a loss. It is a small profit, compounded. There are people who will ask me why I would choose such a method, a private message, a ticking clock, a fluff of secrecy. The truth is partly practical. Very few things in modern life command attention the way a direct whisper to the self does. But the truth is also theological. If you insist on giving weight to metaphors, urgency is a kind of invitation to intimacy. When the world gets loud, it seeks out the private rooms where people keep their true selves. A message that is only for you is a way to remind a soul that it is capable of being singled out by compassion or by consequence. Call it fate if you like, call it chance if that makes you comfortable. The effect is the same. You have been asked to be present, and presence is the rarest commodity in any age. If you choose to keep the secret, that too is a form of holiness. Not all truths must be broadcast. Some are better tended in the small places where they can grow roots. If you keep this 10-minute exercise to yourself, then let it be a seed planted in private. Water it with small acts of care. Let it become a habit of attention, a way of living deliberately that does not require drama. If you tell others, do so with compassion and with specificity. If you laugh it off, do not let the laughter be a blade against your own sensitivity. Whatever you choose, make the choice with honesty and compassion. That is the main moral I have for you tonight. I will not tell you how many minutes remain. That is part of the game. The gift of 10 becomes your responsibility to spend. The great temptation in these scenarios is to hoard minutes like coins, to imagine that time is something to be stocked away. But time is not a currency you can hoard, it is a pattern you can weave. 10 minutes woven into a life becomes a seam that helps hold together the garment when it is torn. 10 minutes squandered becomes regret, which is a colder thing than fear. When the 10 minutes end, whichever way they end, let the residue of them remain with you like a small charm. Keep it in the pocket of your ordinary day. Let it remind you to speak the truths that will not wait forever. Let it remind you to act on the small mercies that matter. There are very few moments in life when an alarm is both literal and figurative. Consider yourself fortunate to have received one tonight, however it arrived. Use it well. And if, in the end, you want to blame me for the stir I caused, blame me for drawing your attention rather than for the thing you fear. You will find that when the fear passes, the attention remains. You will find that making one honest choice in the span of 10 minutes makes other choices easier. You will find, perhaps, that the smallest acts of courage are the only ones worth keeping. The rest of this message is silence. That is my way of letting you be the author now. The 10 minutes are yours. What you put into them will be the first line of whatever happens next. You hold the silence now, and in that silence you are both the audience and the storyteller. The hush is not empty, it is a place that keeps possibilities. It holds the shape of decisions like a hand holds water. What you do next will be small and stubborn and interesting, and that is exactly the point. If you have been keeping count of minutes, let that counting stop. Counting too much turns courage into an anxious arithmetic. Instead, treat each breath like a small clock that does not judge. Breathe in with intention, breathe out with the purpose of setting one thing right. If you have only a single sentence to say, choose it with the care you might give a goodbye letter that will never be burned. If you have a moment to leave something behind, leave warmth rather than precision. People remember tone and light more reliably than facts. There is a particular kind of solace in doing a simple practical thing after you have steadied. Fold a blanket. Put a glass of water on the bedside table. Put your keys in the bowl where they will not be lost. These acts are not trivial, They are prayers without poetry. They are quotidian holiness. There is sacredness in the small and ordinary because it is where life is actually lived, in the bowl of a sink, in the pocket left empty because you gave away the thing that used to fit in it. If you want to mark the moment, mark it with something the world cannot take away, a short voice memo. Speak for 30 seconds into your phone and save it. Say your name if you want, then say a truth about someone you love, or a memory that still makes you laugh. The file may be trivial to some, but to someone later, perhaps to you, listening years from now, it will crack like light through a forgotten window. If you record nothing else, record that you were here, that you breathed, that you tried. There is a strange courage available in being ordinary in the face of extraordinary possibility. People imagine heroism as dramatic and loud, often it is quiet and repetitive. A choice to stay, to tend, to call the doctor, to leave the light on for someone arriving late, these are heroic acts because they are grounded in commitment. Choose one small thing that demonstrates care and do it thoroughly. The world is full of half-attentions. Being fully present for one small thing is radical. If the 10 minutes have brought you to a particular crossroad, an old grievance, a decision that has sat like a stone in your pocket, act upon it in the way that will incur the least future regret. Regret is an economy you will not wish to invest in. Say the apology that is owed, or write the note you will not unwrite. If you cannot speak to someone directly, write a letter you don't have to send but keep anyway. Let it be honest. Let it be precise. The act of shaping pain into language changes its geometry. It becomes something you can carry rather than something that carries you. There is also permission in these minutes to choose softness. Courage is not the same as hardness. You are allowed to be tender with yourself. If you feel frightened, place a hand over the place in your chest where fear lives and say, quietly, I am here. No one will hear you, but that does not make it less powerful. Naming fear diminishes its shadow. It does not make the danger vanish, but it gives you a steadiness to stand on. If you are with others, remember that presence is reciprocal. Do not feel required to fix everything. Often the most useful and brave thing you can do is to remain steady. Let people tell you their small cruelties and their private griefs without offering solutions like band-aids. Hold the room like a harbor, still, anchored, patient. People in distress need the permission to feel small and confused without being hurried into action. There will be a future after these minutes, and it will be built out of the accumulation of small sustained choices. If tonight taught you anything, let it be the value of practice. Courage is a habit, and habits are learned by repetition. Practice the small acts of attention now so that when larger demands arrive, and they will, you have a body that remembers how to respond with composure. Practice saying the hard thing in small ways. Practice showing up for someone who is quietly failing at being brave. Practice turning off the phone when the world becomes too loud. Practice letting silence sit with you without flinching. Sometimes the message was right about the immediate danger, sometimes it was a false alarm. Both possibilities are instructive. If the danger came and you acted, however small the action, you will know that you can move when necessary. If the danger did not come, you have still gained practice in generosity toward yourself and others. Do not discard that practice because it did not seem to be needed. Think of it as a rehearsal for future daybreaks. You might be wondering whether the whisper that prompted these 10 minutes, will send another message. Perhaps I will. Perhaps this is the only extra nudge I will ever give. That little uncertainty is a kindness. It keeps you from expecting miracles as a constant. It forces you to become your own alarm, your own tenderness, your own steady hand. The skill of noticing when something matters is more valuable than any single warning. Cultivate it. Before you close this final minute, do one last small thing. Make a small plan that is doable, not a list that will only shame you later. Choose one habit you can keep over the next week that will honor this moment. A phone call, a walk, 10 minutes of writing, a promise to sleep earlier. Make it specific and make it tender. Write it down and leave the note somewhere you will find it. Finally, remember that being told something urgent is not a verdict on your worth. It is an invitation to care. If you responded with attention, whether out of fear or out of love, that attention is a kind of treasure. Keep it. Tend it. Use it to make small acts of kindness in the days that follow. The silence remains. Use it to listen to the ordinary music of your life, the hum of the refrigerator, the breath of another in the next room, the distant rhythm of traffic. These are not trivial sounds, they are the chorus into which you return. Step back into them slowly, with the memory of what you did in these 10 minutes as a tangible thing you carry, small, weighted, real.